Bend, we've created an innovative model for rehabilitation, really focusing on quality of life, getting people back outdoors, doing the fun activities that everyone loves to do that oftentimes are lost with a progressive disease or condition. And so this is my family. We have 3 young kids, and so we're busy. I'm busy at work and busy when I'm not at work at home, but they're a lot of fun. And these are our founding values. And really, I think it's summed up best in this statement: to use innovative thinking applied to excellent clinical skills, getting to know our patients individually so we can help them find a confidence and a passion for adventure. And that's really what we do. We're all about equipping people to feel confident, to know what they're capable of, to discover maybe a new way of doing something or a new activity, or even to return to an activity that they never thought they would get back to. And even if it has to be modified, even if we have to make changes in it, the whole point is get outside, have fun, have some adventure in your life, because that really is what makes life amazing and fun and brings quality. We were founded in 2016 and we have grown since then. We do a yearly event that some of you who aren't in this area might want to come out for. It's usually, we're trying to have it in June, so just be watching for that. And really, we see everyone age 18 and above. We have quite a few folks who have Parkinson's in our program. We also see people with stroke, brain injury, multiple sclerosis, and spinal cord injury. And we have people who are 20 years old and we have people in their 90s. So it's a really fun, very wide variety. The main 4 program areas are the outdoor-based outpatient therapy. So that's one-on-one sessions. And we do insurance billing, cash pay as well. And that's just really focused on the individual things that people want to work on. Then we also have some group activities. The adventure rehab vacation is for people who are out of town who want to come work with us for a week, 2 weeks, or even up to 6 weeks. And then the adventure group we run every summer. And the whole point is social and peer support and doing some outdoor adventures and kind of stretching your boundaries. And then a regular fitness program where we meet for outdoor fitness 2 times a month out here in Bend, and then have a personal calendar that we help everyone create. So that's kind of our program. It's pretty fun out here. So today we get to talk about several things. I'm going to blast through a little bit of it, but then there's an opportunity to do a little more of a deep dive. And really what I wanted to do was set up at the beginning some reasons why paying attention to how you walk, the way that you walk, and setting yourself up for success, why does it matter? So first of all, we can't really talk about anything related to recovery or rehabilitation or making improvements without talking about neuroplasticity. So this is one of my favorite crazy diagrams. And basically it just shows you, if you look over on the right, you can see the brain. There's the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. And in your brain tissue, different parts of your body are represented. And it's either the sensation that you feel in those different areas, like the tongue and the lips. You can see this blue is the sensation that you feel, and that's where it heads in the brain to tell you that's what's receiving the signal. That's the area receiving the signal. And all the way up into the feet and legs and toes. And then you can see the motor cortex. So this is sending signals out when you want to move a muscle, when you want to activate for walking or for biking or doing different activities, even standing. Your brain sends signals to your muscles, and they're also represented in a particular pattern in the brain. Now, the very cool thing about neuroplasticity is that everyone's pattern looks slightly different. This is kind of a general mapping of what it looks like, but someone who's a pianist and has been playing the piano their entire life, their hand and finger representation on their brain will be much larger than someone who, say, is a soccer player. For someone who's a soccer player who has used their feet their whole life, maybe they're a professional player, and they've practiced that a lot, their brain has changed to give more room and more space with all of these areas to the legs and feet. And so I think the take home from this is that what you tell your brain to pay attention to, it responds to that. And it actually makes changes within its structure to say, oh, okay, this is what's important now. We're paying attention to this now. And likewise, if you stop paying attention to something, let's say you're not doing certain exercises, or things have gotten busy and so you've neglected certain things, well, that's kind of a signal to your brain. Your brain says, oh, well, I guess this isn't as important anymore. We're no longer paying attention to this. And some of that representation starts to shrink. Neuroplasticity can happen throughout the entire life span, so it doesn't matter how young or how old you are, there can always be some brain training that you can do. And I think this is an important principle as well. The Hebb's postulate is neurons that fire together, wire together. And I think it's easy to say, oh, use it or lose it. But if you really think about what this statement means, if you use it and you have poor ways of doing things that are not very efficient or not really good for your body, or not the right use of your muscle balance, then you're actually practicing the wrong thing and you're telling your brain to do it the wrong way, and it will learn. It will learn that way of doing things. And so it's important to realize that every movement you make throughout the day, you're communicating to your brain, this is how we do things now. And likewise, if you make those movements better and better and really focus on certain things that might be holding you back, that your brain can strengthen those connections, and good practice can create better walking and better patterns. I'm not going to talk a lot about exercise today because that could be a whole other topic, but I just thought I'd throw out here. I'm sure you've all been talking about or heard about BDNF. And really, it's very important for, and shows to have increased levels after aerobic exercise programs. It also does not necessarily hang around once exercise has stopped. It'll hang around for a while, but not forever and ever. So one bout of exercise can increase BDNF in the brain. It's a protein that helps with neuroplasticity. And with continued exercise and continued aerobic work, it will continue to be produced. Once that aerobic work stops, if you were to sit on the couch for a month, those levels do drop. So I think that's important motivation as well. There are quite a few studies on walking and Parkinson's. And this 2014 study at the top, I do have these references if someone wants to do a deeper dive into them. Basically, they showed what seems fairly apparent to me and probably to most of you, is that walking improves motor function, it improves mood, it improves attention and response, it improves speed. So doing walking improves walking. It also improves a lot of other things and a lot more functional things that affect the rest of life. And then the 6-week Nordic walking training program that they did, really they took 6 weeks. They did 90-minute sessions about with the warm up and the cool down. 40 patients, so not a lot of patients, but they definitely found substantial improvement in just 6 weeks of the Nordic walking. And really, the recommendation coming out of that study was add the walking, if you're capable, add walking to your regular routine, because it does create an improvement in functional performance, which then leads to improvement in quality of life. So why does it matter? Why does it matter how you walk? Does it only matter how long you walk or how many minutes you walk? Or does it actually matter how you're positioned while you're walking? I would argue that efficiency and positioning are the two of the important things that matter when you're walking. And the reason for efficiency is better energy conservation. So if you're walking in the most efficient manner possible, then the energy that you have to put into the exercise is much better. You can go walk for longer, go farther distance, and really challenge your system in the best way possible. Rather than if certain muscles are taking over for others, they might get tired quicker. And so then you have some that you're missing out on, where you're really not challenging the whole system if there's not good efficiency. Good positioning is also very important. So positioning can influence the strain on your body and your joints, use of the muscles. There could be injury risk if positioning is not correct. Overuse injury is caused when one system has to take over and do more than it was meant to do. And overuse injuries can be really, really frustrating and really nagging. And so I would argue that good positioning can help avoid those overuse injuries that can happen. Poor postural habits are certainly emphasized when gravity is involved. So you're up and you're walking, you're getting a little bit tired. Any poor posture that you might have throughout the day just by habit, most of us have some bad habits, and it can be emphasized during the motion of walking, again, because you're moving, so there's a little more energy involved in keeping yourself upright, and you're working against gravity the whole time. So I would argue that good posture going into a walking routine is really critical, because it will only become more difficult to maintain while you're walking and exercising. And then one example would be, let's say you have a weak core. You think, well, why do I need to do planks or to do core ab exercises for walking? That doesn't make sense. It's my legs are walking, not my stomach muscles. But I would argue that from my perspective, a weak core can translate to your back being swayed, which is where it gets kind of curved. And then your hips are actually in a poor position for walking. And we're going to actually look at some gait in a little bit and some charts. And so you'll see that. But it's amazing how every little piece translates and can affect things up and down the chain. So normal gait. Here is a chart, and I'll just walk you through it real quick. So over on the left, the leg that's in front, the leg that's outlined in black, is the one that we're looking at and the one that the chart is related to. So this is going to be initial contact here with the heel. You can see some of the muscles that are active. Then you come with loading. So this person is loading weight onto this limb that's outlined in black. Then they go through mid stance, which is where they're translating. The other leg is in motion over the top of the standing leg. So think about the stability that needs to happen. When you have one standing leg and the other one's moving, there needs to be some really good stability and good positioning in the leg that you're standing on. So then the opposite leg swings through and we get a nice long extended leg. That means the leg is stretched back behind. Eventually that weight gets transferred onto the opposite leg. And now the leg that we're looking at, the leg outlined in black, is about to move forward. It swings forward, a pendulum type motion, and then we're back at the beginning. So a couple things to point out. Look at the nice straight, almost straight, not 100%, but almost straight knee. And we don't want it to be totally locked out straight. But at the beginning here, this leg is very nicely stretched out way in front, and the knee is nearly straight. That helps with quite a few things during walking, which we'll talk more about in a minute. Another thing I wanted you to take a look at. It's my control. Hold on one second. So the leg extended back. This leg that we're looking at, outlined in black, is extended back. That also helps with the phase that comes after it. So as you're thinking about the gait cycle and how are you positioned, think about every phase that you're in this walking gait cycle. It's preparing you for the next phase. And if there is something abnormal happening in any one of these phases, the next 2 or 3 phases are affected by it. So with this leg extended back, now we have, it's ready for the swing, that pendulum swing through, so that the person here walking gets a nice, good, long step. Here's another chart. And in our clinic, we use, and a lot of physical therapists that I know use, the Rancho Observational Gait Analysis System, and that is out of California, Rancho Los Amigos. They have tons of workbooks and tons of amazing courses on gait analysis. So just so you know, that's where this wording in this chart comes from. So again, you can look and see that at the beginning of the phase, here, the leg that's dark is the one that we're looking at. That's the reference down below. So we've got the initial contact and loading. This is where you have to accept the weight of your limb, because the opposite leg is going to move. So all of the weight of not just the limb, the whole body. So this limb, this leg, is getting ready to accept the weight of the whole body so that the other leg can move through. So then we come through again here, we've got stance. Now you're standing on the leg, the opposite leg is lifting up and swinging through. You need good stability. With a nice long step forward and a nice long stretched out leg back, we get that really good big step that we're often talking about and encouraging for people with Parkinson's, encouraging that nice big long step and having even steps. And then that sets up this leg here to swing through and get back to getting ready to load and accept the weight of the leg again. And we're going to talk more about the leg extended back, which is why that's highlighted. So here is a video that I found online, and I thought they did a really good job. So if you look through, this is a video of someone walking. She has some different gait analysis. These dots are for the video capture. So there we go, heel contact right there. That's what we just looked at. Now her weight is being accepted onto that limb. That frees up the opposite leg to swing through. Now look at this, her heel is about to lift off. Now this back leg can propel through the motion. So you can see all of the phases that we just talked about as she comes through. Nice even steps, nice soft landing, and pretty effortless swing. You can notice also her arms are swinging pretty naturally. I would say that's a lot of arm swing, but we do want to see some nice natural arm swing. So let's talk a little bit. Why do we want this leg extended back? I'm kind of going to harp on it today because it's an easy target and it's very important. And it's something that a lot of people with Parkinson's can find themselves getting tightened down into more of a crouched or bent walking pattern. And this right here is one way to help avoid that. So the leg extended back, we call that hip extension. And what that helps set up in terms of efficiency for walking is this passive elastic energy. So think about the muscle. The muscle is going from the top of the hip and stretching all the way down and even past the knee. So as this leg comes back, the muscle and tendon unit is stretching nearly to its full capacity of stretch. So it's like a rubber band or like an elastic band where if you stretch it, it now has some recoil that can be utilized as stored energy, essentially. So the stretch to the muscle happens only when there's a proper setup in terms of alignment. So like I mentioned earlier, the core is holding the back steady, and then the hip is extending back. And then that sets up a nice stretch on that muscle tendon unit. So we get the stretch, we get stored energy. And then, yay, energy release, right? You get to step through and utilize some of that energy for the walking pattern. So you're taking the energy that you used, taking a step forward with the opposite leg, that gives some energy to the leg you're standing on as it stretches back so that that next step is just a little bit easier. Now, it's not the only thing happening. There are muscles activating when this is happening. But this stored energy is a really critical concept to tap into, and it's why it's important to make sure that we have the length and the positioning to take advantage of it. So the key components out of that, going back to those two things that we had talked about, good positioning. Think about muscle flexibility. If you don't have the flexibility in your hip to get into that nice stretched out position, then you can't make use of those elastic properties to help propel your leg forward. And then step length. If you're taking a small step, then there's no way to get your hip or your leg back there that far. So positioning really matters. for making use of this, and that translates into good efficiency, better energy conservation, the ability to walk with higher repetition. High repetition is really important for learning, really important for the brain, really important for your cardiovascular training and your aerobic training. So if you think about it, if you're setting yourself up well to get the maximum amount of steps possible with the energy that you have, then everything, you've raised everything up a level by setting yourself up well initially. Few things just to go back to, think about our walking diagram, getting set up correctly for it. So the core is active, that keeps the hips in place, the pelvis, keeps your pelvis in place so that as your legs move underneath the pelvis, they can move and stretch and flex the way that they need to. So the core is active, helps maintain back position. Leg is extended on that backward step. That helps with the stored energy and better step length. Heel is up, that's actually another stored energy system. It also helps create stability. So when the heel is up and the toes are stretched out, it forms a tightness in the foot that actually gives pretty good stability to not roll side to side. If you're not getting enough of a stretch there, you're not going to have those tight components helping hold the foot in place. We've got arm swing. Very important to have a little bit of trunk rotation. There's not much, but if you're really stiff, that makes it hard for the whole system to move fluidly. The reciprocal motion of the arm, so opposite arm, opposite leg steps forward at the same time. And then the knee almost straight, not entirely straight, ready to bend, but the knee straight gets set up for that load absorption and also for a good step length. If his knee wasn't straight, he would just be contacting his foot flat down on the ground, really heavy. We don't want that. We want a nice soft roll through of the foot. So starting at the heel and rolling down and then absorbing the weight of the body so that the other leg can easily and freely move through. I mentioned posture. Posture absolutely matters. So poor posture can result in pain, headaches, weakness, chronic poor positioning. Sometimes if it gets really bad, it can cause numbness and tingling as well. And there are some simple ways to avoid this. Good positioning, thinking about your household position of different items while you're cooking, while you're reading, even the car setup. A work at home station. There are lots of different ways to ergonomically set up your home and everywhere you're at for good positioning. And then exercise. So strengthening the areas that are weak and stretching the areas that are tight. Pretty straightforward. So right here is a little diagram of the weak part of the X. This is an upper crossed syndrome chart. And the weak part is going to be the front of the neck where we get nice and stretched out. It becomes really weak because the muscle fibers are not overlapping like they should be. So they get weak and stretched out. Same thing can happen in between your shoulder blades, right up at the kind of upper back area. And a lot of people have pain in that area because of it. And then what gets tight is often the shoulders roll forward and get really tight at the pecs. Again, pulling you into that bad positioning. And then tight up here at the top of the neck as well. So that's where people get the shoulders rolled forward and then the pinched neck at the back. And that's what can cause a lot of headaches as well. So what do? We stretch the tight areas, chest muscles, the back of the upper neck. And then we strengthen the weak areas, which would be between the shoulder blades and those chin tuck muscles at the front of the neck. So with all of that, I was hoping to show you, hopefully now you're convinced that doing some things to set up your walking well will only help you and that there's good reason to do that, that how you walk is important, not just the fact of walking. So I was hoping to take you through some preps, not only as a warm up for walking, but then I'll show you the next one. some prep exercises as well. So some stretches and some prep exercises. And I'd like to demonstrate these for you. I would love it if you guys join along. I know I can't see you, but I'll just trust that you're doing it and you're gonna jump in on it. So I'm going to pause for a second, stop my share briefly and turn my computer so that you can see. I have a chair set up. So if you have a chair somewhere, I'll give you like 10 seconds to get that chair set up.
I'll come on while you're doing all that. I'm ready to do the demonstration as well, so.
Just stop my video while I shuffle.
Yeah, I know. I was sitting here thinking about my posture at the computer, so it's one of those things. I hope you all are enjoying it so far. I kind of wish that I could see Dr. Nelson every day. I feel like we've already gotten a lot of great tips.
Oh, thanks. All right, so you can see the chair on the video.
Yep, I can see you. Looks good.
Perfect. Now I have do you want me to screen share that again so that you guys can see what I'm doing? Or for video, is it better if I just keep the video big?
Yeah, maybe just do it for now, and then we can, maybe show it again.
Okay, sounds good. When I go back to screen share, it'll come back up.
Okay.
So, a couple things I'm going to walk you through. First of all, stretching for posture. Your pecs are what round your shoulders forward. So an easy way to do this on a chair would just be to grab the back of the chair, and we're going to do some openings.
Oh.
Turn your head as you go. This should feel good. Try and keep your shoulders down away from your ears. You can do this standing as well, or through a door frame. One more. Breathe, jumping. Excellent. Let's get the other side. Good measure. Switch. Remember to look at your hand as you go around. Try and keep your shoulders down away from your ears. The open palm helps with that. If your palm is down, you tend to roll forward, which is exactly what we don't want. So keeping the palm open and stretching out. And you're feeling a stretch right through the front. You may even feel it on both sides with this. Okay, the upper neck, the back of the upper neck is what I mentioned can cause headaches and can get really tense. So what you do is take your fingers like this, put them right underneath where you feel the cranium, where you feel your head. It's kind of soft and then it's bony at the top. And what you want to do is right underneath the bony part of your head, your skull, you just pull up. Now don't curl down. Try and stay upright. Let your chin tuck down and just pull up a little bit. And you can even feel your fingers moving up the back of your skull. Again, this is stretching. It should feel good. You might feel some tension in those muscles. If you want to use just one hand, that's fine too. You just kind of cup and grab, and you can even turn a little bit. So if I turn, I feel it more on one side.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
And then you can turn the other way. Remember to breathe while you're doing these. Chin tuck. This is an exercise that you've possibly been shown before, but what you want to do is put your 2 fingers on your chin, try and stay looking straight forward, and then just tuck your chin. It's kind of like a turtle coming out of its shell, right? So you come out of your shell, that's poor posture. Tuck in, that's good posture. So practice that. And you can even press a little bit with your fingers. You want to create a double or triple chin. You don't have to look cute.
So is this elongating your neck?
Yep, the back of the neck. Is that where you're feeling it?
Yeah.
And then if you don't use your fingers and you just tuck, now we're strengthening the front. So remember we talked about those opposite muscle groups. One gets really tighten down and you need to stretch it. The other one gets really loose and weak and we need to strengthen it. So doing some of those chin tucks, just tucking in and holding can really help. Strengthening and shortening. And let's do another posture one. You're gonna do W arms. You can do this one-sided if you want, or both at the same time. W arms. And what you do is press down. Pretend like you have like one of those bouncy medicine, or not medicine, but those exercise balls that are pretty bouncy underneath, and you're pressing it, smashing it to the ground. And release. And smash the ball to the ground. So you should feel the muscles activate all along the side, and even between your shoulder blades in the middle of your back. Just stick your chest out just a little bit. So this is activating some of those muscles in the back that get really stretched out. And when muscles get stretched out and are in pain, you tend not to use them. Your body tends to kind of ignore them. Because of the pain, you're trying to sort of ignore it, and then they don't activate. So this is activating the postural muscles in the back. Keeping your neck nice and long. So stretching for walking, that was mostly all posture. Now stretching for walking, we're going to do hip flexors. So I talked about the hip and how it's important to be able to get the one leg as you're walking, you're stepping forward, the opposite leg is trailing behind you. So the best way to do this would be, if you're on a chair, would be to put your fingers on your hips to make sure you're not twisting. If you're twisting like this, you're not going to get the stretch. You have to really face so that your hips are pointing at the knee in front of you, and that other leg goes behind, and you should be able to feel a stretch through the front of the hip. Now, some people might feel that better by standing. If you're going to stand, you have the leg you're stretching is behind, opposite leg in front, your body is facing forward, and then you come through and stretch. Now here's where you're going to feel if you're activating your core. If you're activating your core and your back is a little bit more neutral position, which is a little bit more flat than a lot of people let their backs be, instead of being really rounded, being only slightly rounded. If you tuck your core a little bit, that's where you're going to feel even more of a stretch through the front of the hip. And then you can switch, try the other side. Tuck the tummy and bend through. Again, you should feel the stretch on the front of the hip of the leg that's behind you. Trunk rotation is very important. Sitting again. Trunk rotation is very important for walking. So let's do some trunk rotation. So I'm going to take my arm, come down diagonal and up diagonal. Working on that rotation. There isn't a lot of really visible rotation during walking, but it's important to have the movement available to you, to have that mobility. Think about looking to your side or seeing if somebody is going to come across the path in front of you, talking to a friend next to you. It's really important to not be really stiff and rigid through the trunk.
I'm guessing that helps with balance too then, right? Just in general.
Yes, and balanced reactions, absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
From falling, yeah.
We'll switch sides. Yep, balance and recovering your balance. Someone who's really stiff can't react quickly to losing their balance. Someone who is, think about the tennis player that's always bouncing on their feet.
Right.
Similar kind of a concept. If you're sort of ready for movement and not locked into one position, then you can react much quicker. All right, from here you can go straight into a side reach. Make sure you're breathing, and a side reach to the other side. Feel it all along the side. Nice. Calf stretch and hamstring stretch. So we'll go this way, so you can hopefully see my feet. Calf stretch, you can use a band or something if you want to, but stretching forward, don't curl your back. Stay up nice and tall and just reach forward to a spot in the air above your leg. You might feel it more in the calf, which is below the knee, or you might feel it more in the hamstring above the knee. Reaching forward. And then if you let your toe go forward and try and get your belly to your knee, you'll feel it more in the hamstring. Tight hamstrings can really make someone crouch down during walking, because remember how we talked about the leg coming out nice and fully for that big step forward? Think about a tight hamstring on the back of your leg, and you're trying to reach out, but you can't, so you end up with kind of a flat foot, bent walking pattern, right? So we want nice long hamstrings to be able to get that big step forward. Okay.
So are these things we should every day, like before you go walking, after you, like,
yeah,
what do you recommend?
The idea in me putting these together was a prep routine for walking. Good question.
Okay.
Yeah, so that you're thinking about, okay, we're going to activate the muscles we need, we're going to stretch the muscles that need to be lengthened, and then we're ready to set ourselves up well for walking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you start to feel warm, so your body is set up, the blood is flowing and the oxygen is coming, so.
Awesome, yeah. Yep, it's a good warm up. And we do this in therapy sessions with people all the time. We have them go through a little prep routine, and we call it prepping, because we're getting the body ready for whatever exercise or activity we're having them do. So that's another way to stretch the hamstring. If you're feeling really tight and you want to be on a chair or a bench, you can do that as well. So I have a timer I wanted to show you, and I'm just going to go through one round of each of these, because you can always do more on your own, but these are some little warm-ups. Here's my timer, and I have this included at the end if you want to get this app. I don't sell it or anything. It's just a handy one. Nice. But I'm putting 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds of rest. So let's go through a few of these, and you're going to hear the beeps on the phone as it goes 20 seconds, 10 seconds. So the first one I'm going to do is a heel raise. You can do double. You can try to do single. You can also, for added challenge, do single with the knee up. Now think about that walking pattern that we looked at, the chart that we looked at, where someone is coming through and they're getting the heel raise in the back, right? That's part of what we're practicing. Now we're overemphasizing it, but it's a heel raise, thinking about the next step forward. And then you can even add alternate arms. So you can take it all the way up to here. You could just do a heel raise. You could just do a simple knee and heel, holding on. Lots of different ways to do it. So that was just 20 seconds. So the principle of that is, what are the motions I need for walking? And let's activate those muscles in short bursts, kind of wake them up.
Somebody did ask real quick, does moderate intensity walking give the same benefit as high intensity walking?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess it depends on what you're talking about in terms of heart rates and stuff like that. But the studies that I referenced before, they had it at a moderate and they did find improvement. I would say there's not necessarily, walking at moderate and above is going to improve things. I mean,
great.
You know, you're kind of splitting hairs at a certain point. Really getting out and getting walking and pushing yourself and getting your heart rate up is the most important thing. I do really like encouraging people to do short bursts of high intensity, because it challenges your system in these like small packages that it's able to deal with, and it really is helpful because it's manageable. So instead of, trying to just say, oh, I have to do everything high intensity and then getting discouraged, it's better to start at moderate and then do little spikes of high. So variety, spice of life.
Yeah.
It's really good to challenge your system in different ways. In the same way, I'll just throw in there, it's good to also walk in different patterns. So think about, you're going to walk sideways, you're going to walk diagonally. Of course, as long as you're safe and the situation is set up appropriately. But if you only walk one direction all the time, forever and ever, that's how your body's trained. How much better is it for you to train in different positions so that if you do lose your balance and have to step to the side, you've already trained in that direction.
And hiking really can do that for you when you're on different terrain and having to navigate that.
Absolutely, which is why we love getting people outside.
Yeah, yes.
All that unpredictable.
Right. I didn't mean to interrupt. Keep going on your next exercise.
Oh, that's fine. So I'll just show you the modified mountain climbers because I think that's also an important one. So here's one you can do on the, say, the back of the chair. This activates the core, like I talked about. You can actually be as far out as you want, or you could be in a little closer, and you're thinking about climbing a mountain. So if I'm doing this one leg at a time, I'm gonna lift up my knee, and it's like the mountain climber plank that people will do on the ground. So you can do it on the ground, but doing it here, getting the high knee. So I'm getting the stretch. You see this, like I'm getting this nice stretch to the high knee, stretch to the high knee. Overemphasizing, but another way to kind of mimic the walking. Should we answer questions now?
Sure. There any hints for avoiding cramps after stretching the tight muscles and exercise?
Oh.
The cramping, it looks like, might be.
So avoiding cramps after exercise. I probably would normally want a little more detail on when or why. Is the person drinking enough water is one of the first things I think of. Cramps after stretching or after exercise?
It says after stretching the tight muscles and exercise.
Okay.
So it sounds like after.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see the chat too, but.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I would look at probably a number of different factors. As like I mentioned, is the person hydrated enough? Are they, what's their exercise intensity like? Is it appropriate for them? Are they doing it regularly, or is this like a once a week thing where they're challenging their body a ton one time a week and then not the rest of the week? So it's kind of an extra, so they're not training into it. That's another pretty important thing. You don't want to start. That's why I think I hesitate to just say, just go all high intensity, because it kind of depends on where you're starting, right? So if you're starting with not doing much, just start with doing something. Just get out there, get walking, and then start working into those moderate, and then start working into the, the higher intensity intervals as well. Will someone help? Bananas, yep.
Magnesium, bananas, and water is what one person suggested. There was another question. Are you aware of research of the benefits of arm swinging intervention? Curious, since limited arm swing is known to be predominant symptom of PD and Alzheimer's.
Yeah, well, even the study that I actually included had the Nordic walking using poles that encourages the arm swing, because you have to, especially if you're doing it right, you have to bring your arm out in front.
So it's teaching your brain to move the pole.
Yep, the repetition of the patterning. Yeah, so if you think back to the neuroplasticity slide, what you tell your brain to focus on and what you tell your brain to train on is what it starts doing. So if you're getting into the habit of not moving your arms at all, your brain starts to sort of think, okay, I guess we don't need to move our arms as much now. And that becomes the training. Every movement you do is a type of training for your brain. And so Absolutely. I mean, we'll see big improvements just even in PT sessions where we're training with someone holding poles in front of them and then we're swinging the poles behind them. That's a really common way to train walking and to train back that arm swing. And we'll see results pretty quickly actually in therapy sessions, in between therapy sessions, where then, and sometimes it's just a realization thing. You don't realize you're not swinging your arms. So as soon as you're paying attention to it a little bit, that can help.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any other questions? We're almost out of time too, so this has been very helpful. I hope did you get everything you wanted to say, Dr. Nelson?
Well, I had a few more slides. Let me just run through. Let's see here. I wanted to mention a couple other things.
Yeah.
Which would be the external cues. So this is really important, especially for people with Parkinson's. We use it a ton in the clinic. It's a target or a prompt that is outside of your own body, outside of your own mind. So you can get creative, you can use lines, objects, music, it can be visual, it can be something that you're listening to. And then also setting yourself up to minimize whatever triggers your freezing. So if you're someone who has challenges with freezing, and that's an issue for you for walking, trying to set up, thinking about what is triggering my freezing, and then setting up a walking routine to avoid those triggers so you don't get that interruption. And here are a few of the external cues. Clock Yourself is a really fun app. You pretend you're standing in the middle of a clock and it tells you where to move your feet. So it has to do with coordination and cognitive challenge. And then the interval timer that I use is this seconds interval timer. And then, like I said, you could just get creative with external cues, but we use a lot of external cueing in rehab because it works. It helps unlock the system of movement. Oh, and this is our adventure group. Some of the fun things we did. Oh, there's another question. Oh, there's lots. If you get cramps walking up hills, should you avoid hills altogether or slowly add hills back into your routine? I'd be curious if you get cramps biking. Because biking is a really good way to add some hill intervals, recumbent trikes, or I always like doing outdoors, so that's what I encourage people to do. But getting cramps walking up hills, again, gosh, I would love to know more details because everyone is so individual and unique. My thought would be to try that the goal would be to add the hills back in eventually, but we'd have to look at different strategies to maybe do hill-like training or do some power strength training and see if we can get at that another way and then get back into the hills. I wouldn't say no hills forever. I would hardly say no anything forever and ever. I think a lot is possible. But usually we have to go at things from different perspectives, different problem solving, try something and we'll do this in rehab. We'll try something that we think is going to work. And we have to, that's why we have such a one-on-one individual approach, because I have to see that person moving and I have to see their reaction to what we're trying to do and day to day. And so,
yeah, and I would reiterate that, make sure that you all have your own care team. So, whether it's your primary and then a physical therapist, those kind of things, so that you can, talk to somebody in person that is actually a part of your care team.
Right. Yep. And that's why I would always advocate that your PT sees you and is with you and is, there watching you and really has the time to do that analysis with you. Mm-hmm. Someone asked about Parkinson's events. Was it here?
Are there Parkinson's events throughout the year, even if traveling is needed? I guess I'm not sure if that's in Bend or here in Oregon. I know for Brian Grant Foundation, we are not doing events in person. So, if you are somewhere local and you want to find some things, I would suggest maybe a local support group for your area, and then maybe they can other people can give you a suggestion on what's happening around in your area.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to
yeah.
travel to Bend, we have someone who has come before for 1 week to work with us more intensely. And then we have someone right now who's here for 6 weeks, and she's doing other activities as well as meeting with us. So we're open to pretty much anything. If we can make it happen for you, we'll make it work.
Okay, so I just run one last question about Bend. We live in the Gorge. Are you curious? I'm curious if we can come to Bend this fall for a prearranged visit. That sounds like, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, just
well, everyone, what's your website again?
destinationrehab.org.
Perfect.
And our current peak fitness classes are going to be year-long now. So they'll keep going, if that was what that question was about, keep going through the fall. And the adventure group starts back up in May for anyone who's interested in adventure group. That's a weekly activity adventure group. And it's destinationrehab.org. There's a pretty easy button to click on and we'll get a hold of you. So you just fill out some information and we have a team that reaches out.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Dr. Nelson, and thank you, everyone. We will post this recording to our website, briangrant.org, and also email it out to everybody. Check out our website also for other upcoming Parkinson's events. We are, like I said, doing the mindfulness classes, breathing, being a caregiver. What else? We're going to be looking at some cooking and more exercise in 2022 as well. So thank you, everybody, for your time, and be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.